So today I want to talk about why things look good. More colloquially, more commonly known as aesthetics. So it's not necessarily like a set out version of what is aesthetics or what I think aesthetics is. It's more what aesthetics are in relation to me and my practice, how I respond to aesthetics, what I think about them, how they're relevant, not relevant. For example, the 3D printing is coming along, by the way. Check this out. This goes here, like this. A very quick sneak peek again. What is aesthetics? What are aesthetics? I'm not really explaining what aesthetics are necessarily. It's more like I want to use the word aesthetics or the concept of aesthetics as the seed of a kind of train of thought. I'm going to just kind of ramble on. I make this style of work called constructions. Ding, 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 ding. This is also part of the constructions unit. The work obviously has inherent aesthetic qualities. I don't just pluck the idea out of thin air per se. I have made work in the past and you draw upon that work and there is a kind of natural progress, a kind of an evolution, if you will, within the work that has eventuated in the work that I'm currently producing. I, as an artist, am concerned with, I as a human being, am concerned with the world, with society improving, with kind of socialistic ideas, with socialism as a political idea, with utopian ideas, aims that promote the well-being of people at the centre of things rather than, say, monetary gain or products as an end goal. I am much more interested in people being satisfied rather than making a fantastic product, for example. There's this study, this idea that's always quoted in these situations, or that always comes to mind when I think about it, and it's like the 12 stages of making a pin. You can make a pin on your own in this, I don't know if it's real or, it doesn't really matter, the sentiment is still there. You can make this pin in 12 stages, and if you as a person were to make the pin from beginning to end, you, at the end of this 12-stage process, have this pin that you've made from start to finish, and you get the satisfaction of making it. And this has been well documented that there is a higher level of satisfaction when you make the pin from start to finish than if you are one of 12 people in a line, you know, what's it called, in factory conditions, or was developed by or implemented by Ford Motors, by Ford, you know, the car maker, and the guy who made the Model T. It transformed factory conditions. I'm really digressing here. Basically, this 12-step process, if done in this way, where there are 12 people that make it, you know, one piece and then pass it to the next, and they do the next piece and then pass it to the next, in this lineup, the satisfaction level nosedives. And I'm just using this as an example because, for me, it's much more important as a society to have high levels of satisfaction than more efficient means of production. And that isn't a popular, especially in industry, isn't a popular sentiment. And how on earth does this tie into aesthetics, these ideas of equality and these ideas of socialism and this aim of utopia? And I suppose I am the link. I am the person that makes these aesthetic pieces of artwork, and I'm also concerned from a human level. And the reason I'm an artist is because I think an artist's responsibility is to kind of open this window for other people to see. So I feel like the unique perspective that you as an artist have, or as a person, if you know, of course everyone has a unique perspective, but my unique perspective, I think, is best demonstrated through art practice. And I haven't quite realised that potential yet, but that's what this journey is. So yeah, I'm concerned with aesthetics within my work, and it comes from abstract expressionism. There was a big movement, especially towards in the 60s, the painting style that was prominent there I found really interesting. And early on, when I was studying art, I was fascinated by that and started also making abstract paintings. This led into sculptural elements like Fontana's work, where he sliced the canvas, and it really interested me. And basically, one step led to another, and several years later, we end up with the style that I'm currently working towards now. Now, I can't quite explain why I'm drawn to it or why I want to make this, but you have to respect that process, that artists make objects because they want to, and there's an inherent value to that. I believe when you go to a museum, people brush over things and say, "Oh, why can't you paint this or paint that or do photorealism or paint landscapes or faces or whatever?" But I can't quite explain why I'm not drawn to that. I mean, why do you like the taste of coffee and not tea? Why do you? We'll come back to that in a bit, actually, because that's quite an important analogy. The tea and coffee one. I mean, I don't know why I'm drawn to make these things, but I am. And for now, I'm in the process of exploring that and developing it as an end in itself. I think it has inherent value, and I'm willing to spend time and effort to produce these aesthetic objects whilst pursuing ideas of equality, disintegration of borders. I think, why on earth are there borders outside of the obvious necessity of them now for economic reasons? But I think we should be trying to transcend borders and become a much more open globe. I mean, we're on this one tiny little speck, this little planet in the middle of, you know, the universe, and we're concerned with little tiny landmasses in oceans. I mean, can we just get with the program? There's more important things than chasing fictitious money. It's not real. It's a system that's meant to help us realise our potential. That's what currencies were originally created for storing grain in silos at the beginning of the agricultural revolution, and they've morphed into their own self. There's no inherent value in a currency. It's not linked to the gold standard anymore like it was you know, in the 20s, 30s. I don't know precisely when it is, but we've been decoupled from the gold standard, and now there is no inherent value to currency. So it's very difficult to respect our entire capitalistic model, because it's fundamentally flawed in the fact that it doesn't have happiness or fulfillment as a centralized goal. And I find that imperative that we try and move towards that thought process. With the constructions unit, especially with these aesthetic objects that I make as an artist, there's this performative role whereby you have to function in our capitalistic society. I have to function, and I choose to function in the way that I currently do. I choose to engage with capitalism and sell my artworks as a means of income. I don't profess to go and live in the woods and you know, go back to nature or something. That's not something that I'm currently interested in. I like our world and our society, but there's a kind of hypocritical element to it that I'm comfortable with. I don't find myself, I did, but I don't currently find myself hypocritical. I think that this is the way that I'm trying to help, and that doesn't detract. The fact that I'm engaging with capitalism and perpetuating it doesn't detract from the fact that I'm trying to do something positive about it. And that's why I don't find myself hypocritical necessarily. But there's this performative role where I, as an artist, engage and sell my work on within the art market, and I do that with the full knowledge that I'm perpetuating something that I'm trying to fight against, per se. But I think capitalism still has a long way to go before we can transcend it and become this utopianistic state. I think there's a role that capitalism can play, perhaps some form of reformed capitalism where there is this core ideal. We measure our economy in gross domestic product, but there's also another concept, I think it's called gross human product, and it's, you know, where we really take this as a proxy, as something that mustn't be, you know, that must be taken into account when we, or a government that or a corporation that makes rules that govern people's lives, and you know, we're people, and people have a far more inherent value than systems that we currently you've put on a pedestal. Coming back to the aesthetics of the work again, I make this work and people critique it. They say, can't you paint something more realistic, or actually paint, or, you know, why on earth do you do this? This isn't art, or is this art? Is this good art? Why is this good art? This isn't good art. And quite honestly, I find painting realistic things or landscapes or portraits, I find it boring. You know, I don't like looking at it particularly unless it's got something special about it. And making it, I find boring. It's dull. People say they don't get modern art, they don't get contemporary art, and well, my response is, well, how can you? There's obviously an inherent elitism here, and it's difficult. It can seem hypocritical and difficult when I'm advocating the end of elitism or anti-elitism, whilst saying, well, how can you get this work? You know, of course it's elitist. You have to understand what you're talking about. If you want to be a heart surgeon, you don't just go and start hacking away at someone's chest without understanding what you're doing. You train first, you learn, and you understand what it is you've got to do as a heart surgeon. And I don't see a difference with in regards to art. You have to put in the time and effort and learn what it is you're talking about. You have to understand the history. You have to understand how to draw properly to be able to recognise perspective. And drawing's another one, actually, that I want to discuss later. But art is slightly different to heart surgery. Obviously, you have taste, you have inherent taste, and you're entitled to that, of course. You know, if you like something, you like it, and you don't have to justify that. But you can't expect other people to just like what you like either. You know, there is taste and there is development. I mean, picture the first time you drank coffee or say a beer or a glass of wine or something. Not a lot of people like it. It takes time to get used to it and to start to appreciate, to learn and understand why it tastes the way it does, and you start to enjoy it. And that's not like pseudo enjoyment. You're not faking it, you're not pretending to enjoy coffee. You genuinely like the taste if you like coffee. And that's the same with art. You know, the more you develop and cultivate your understanding and your taste, you start to appreciate more. So this is why I don't really engage with traditional photorealistic or realistic or whatever. This is why I make what I make, because I find it interesting, and you know, it fascinates me what I do, and I really enjoy it. To come back to drawing is important. I mean, people see your work and why can't you do that? I am not saying. I think that when you go to university, of course you'll be able to draw. You know, drawing is an artistic language. Art, although look, the idea is far more important than the execution nowadays. But for me, within my work, I am trying to engage with as many people as possible, and I understand that aesthetics are important. Hence, I choose something that is highly aesthetic. That you know, am I an aesthetician? You know, it doesn't matter. I pursue aesthetics, and I think it's incredibly important. And drawing teaches you how to engage with aesthetics and understand perspective, and obviously that language that you learn early on, it comes in incredibly important. You don't need it, but it makes your work better. Look, you can take an iPhone and hammer a nail in the wall with it. The iPhone will get the job done, but the iPhone's capable of so much more than hammering in a nail. And that's the same with art. Yeah, of course you can make realistic landscapes and renderings and paintings of the world and whatever, but so can a camera. And people hate that argument, don't they? But it's true. You know, if you're really interested, I mean, of course draw it, but if you want to, you can draw it, but don't claim that it's revolutionary art, that you're actually pushing aesthetic boundaries and whatever. No, you're doing one tiny function. It's the same as bashing that nail in, you know. With the iPhone, it gets it done, but it's capable of a lot more than just bashing that nail in. And I would argue that that's what, you know, if you just did drawing and you didn't get past that, or just rendering, painting and reproducing what you see around you, you know, where's your input? And I would say that it's a lot more like, say, stretching to ballet. If you don't stretch, you might be a wonderful ballerina and be, you know, fine. But if you do stretch, you get better, and that's the same with drawing. You know, that exercise, that understanding of a visual language, and art is inherently visual. Don't forget. You know, there are pieces that aren't, but the majority of art is about a visual engagement, and to understand aesthetics to a degree that allows you to get your message, your ideological message across in an aesthetic way. I just think it's going to be a lot more successful, and that's really what I try to embody. Say 51% idea and 49% aesthetics. I think it's more important to have a good idea, but the aesthetics are very, very, very nearly equally as important, because otherwise you become esoteric. You confined to just this tiny little select group of people. And although I advocate it in some regards, and I advocate education and try to understand art better, I obviously understand that people aren't always going to put in the time, and they should still be able to get something out of it, because I think art should be for everybody, not just for an elite group of people. I kind of wrote down a lot more that I wanted to discuss, but I'm conscious that the video is probably getting quite long. I haven't really given a lot of examples, but I'm just going to leave by actually showing an image from Giacometti, who is incredibly popular, but he's one of my early, you know, someone that I was interested in early on, and just the way these figures are, like, well, kind of haunting. They're portraying like the fundamentals of the human condition. I think they're a lot more powerful and interesting than, say, a sad face. It gets the same thing done, or, you know, some realistic painting of a clown crying or whatever. Okay, I just think that that's far more exciting and interesting and relevant than pursuing a fundamental form of aesthetics, perhaps championed by the Stuckist movement, or, I mean, I don't fully know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my train of thought. And next week I'm going to be talking about something called deconstructed authenticity. It's another type of work that I do that kind of tries to engage with some of the ideas we've been talking about in a different way. And yeah, I hope you join me then, and I'll see you next week.